Build wise, it's pretty irrelevant what you choose in terms of options. We use the same on all our builds. The options are the extras. So on all our builds you will have genuine Timken bearings. As we said, you'll have a Dana crown wheel and pinion, unless we've got a very good second-hand one, which is very unusual. You'll have a new dry flange, you'll have our super flange, you'll have all new bolts depending on the grade of build. We'll use different types of bolts, as you'll see through the video, but basically all our builds are built to the same standard. It's just whether or not you choose to have an optional extra or more. Similarly, whatever build we're doing, we strip the casings and we clean the living daylights out of them. And this one, we've taken the head race out and we've taken the shim out, we've cleaned it all up, we've taken the collets out, we've washed them, and it's soon going to be built up as the first option of a standard diff. All of our short nose diff builds, whatever the specification, whichever options you choose, they'll all have the super flange upgrade. So what happens here is this has got an aluminium piece that fits inside here, and we move the seal backwards. So now the dirt's got to not only get past here, it's got to go through there, into there, and to get to the seal. These work really well, and it's part of our standard build. Additionally, you'll see the bolt on the front there. That is also a upgraded flanged headed bolt that we put on there, which is a 10.9 grade. We've seen these literally torn out of a pinion, leaving a broken 8.8 stud, if you like, in the end of the pinion, turning your diff to scrap. Probably because A, it's second hand and been reused. We don't. We put a new one in there straight away and upgrade. When the 110 bolts first came out, they used these, which were the standard Land Rover bolts. They didn't last very long at all. They just broke off because they're very, very low grade. They're lower grade than a metric 8.8 grade. They're the same bolt that's been used since about 1950 on 2-pin diffs. We don't reuse any bolts in a diff rebuild at all, but we wouldn't ever use these. So what Land Rover did was they upgraded to a higher grade bolt. Now the higher grade bolt is this one. FTC 5150, single use, 12.9 grade, flanged heads, serrated, and these you'll find on a lot of P38 and 110 and Wolf short nose diffs, and these are quite good until things start flexing. So the minute they start flexing, what happens is they shear off, because there is no give in them whatsoever. And this little baby here shows exactly that. If they don't shear off, what happens is they nearly shear off, and then as you can see here, they start to unwind. And what happens there is eventually, there's another one, what happens there is eventually this bolt will come up and start machining chunks out the casing. This crown wheel is scrap because that gap there has been flexing away, allowing this bolt to stretch. It's a miracle it hasn't broken, but on these it's very common that these break. Starting off here, we've got a standard centre off a 110 rear. There are basically, it's a 4-pin, so there's 4 gears here. There's 2 cross pins which are 18mm and 2 drive gears, and then shims all the way round. So this is your starting point for a 110 diff centre. These 18mm pins are not as great as you'd think they should be, and I will show you why in a second. So here is your standard 4-pin 110 short nose rebuild. We have put heavy duty carrier caps on, we've put 12.9 grade bolts on, but otherwise it is standard. So this still has the original crossover pins in the centre, and also, although we've upgraded the carrier cap bolts to our 12.9s, it's still got this rather horrible pin assembly, which we don't like, which brings us on to modification that we do, optional extra number 1, which is the Domex carrier cap conversion. You have to bear in mind that that is a hollow pin, and that is on a vehicle that is rated to pull 3.5 tons. Absolutely bonkers. And we see a lot of this. This pin unit here is something we really dislike. it's probably one of our most popular upgrades, getting rid of it, and we're going to do it to this diff as the first of the upgrades to what you can have done to a 110 diff. And some considerable time later, we have sorted these out with our Domex carrier cap upgrades, which take our own Xcess 4x4 CS80 grade ears and nuts and bolts, as you'll see. One of the cheapest and strongest increases in strength you can do to a 110, in our opinion. These have all been linched off, so they're all tidied up, ready to be going on. So that would be upgrade number 1, Domex carrier cap conversion, which you'll see fitted later on in the video. As you can see here, it's got the standard crossover pins, and that moves us on to the, which is the one-piece forged cross shaft upgrade, and we'll show you why it's so strong and popular. It's pretty daft when you look at it. 50% of the metal is being cut away so that the top shaft can go over the bottom shaft, like so. But it's not an 18mm shaft. It's an 18mm by 9mm shaft. And what happens is this, which when that lets go, I can almost guarantee it will destroy your diff. So we have a fix for this, and it's our one-piece forged cross shaft. And so we're going to pop one of those in and show you that option. Ouch. Remove those 2 pins, as you've seen earlier, which have the 50% cut out, and replace it with this, which is our one-piece forged cross shaft, which frankly is a work of art, and that fits straight into there with the gears, which we'll show you in a second. And with a forged cross shaft, that is immensely strong compared with the standard unit with those in. So that is upgrade number 2. One of probably the biggest and strongest upgrades you can do is put it all into a peg casing. So we're going to now take one of the peg casings, show you what that does inside and out. But first we better paint it, I suppose. That looks a bit better, all painted up, ready to build. One peg casing upgrade. Apart from the plates which we TIG weld and machine and drill and tap on the outside of the casing, we also need to modify the centre, because we have our lovely phosphor bronze pad here. Phosphor bronze pad sits here, and basically the crown wheel is underneath, it's bolted together. This whole unit is trying to flex away, and that's what's breaking teeth and breaking bolts. So by putting our phosphor bronze pad on here and 2 bolts, which we'll show you holding this in place, it actually stops this unit flexing. Unfortunately, we can't get our pad to fit on there, so we need to modify the centre. Here we have a centre which we've modified for pegging upgrade. Our phosphor bronze pad will now sit on the piece that we've put in the lathe and machined down, and that will fit on there, and we adjust that when we build it. So the peg casing has the 2 bolts that come through from the outside from the plates that are welded on with a phosphor bronze pad, and this pad basically sits up against the flat that we've machined, and that allows it to hold the crown wheel and the centre on the pinion as it tries to flex away. On the outside we've got the 2 studs, which when finished will have nylocks on when they're adjusted in place. That is pretty much a fit and forget item. By the time the pad needs adjusting, you'll probably need a rebuild on the diff anyway. With everything we've done to the 110 short nose diff to make it stronger, there's one more thing that we're now going to be introducing to cover up this issue, which we call the Tom Jones syndrome. Customer brought this in and said that he's got a bit of a problem. If you look very closely, you'll see some of the bolts. That one there is actually quite loose, and then over here he's actually lost some bolts. And we said to him, yeah, we call this the Tom Jones syndrome. And he said, well, is that very common? We said, well, it's not unusual. And yeah, I'll get my coat. So we have one more plan to sort this out. This is the final upgrade that we can do for your 110, 130 short nose diff. Here, as you can see previously where we've machined it for the pegging system, we've now also machined it for the tab lock upgrade, which we'll go into in a little bit more depth. So this unit here joins this unit, which has got the forged cross shaft in there, and when assembled this will be put into one of our peg casings with the Domex carrier cap conversion, and is the final part of the strengthening that we can offer for a 110 diff. So we'll build this up as a unit and show you what it's like. And there it is, all ready to be fitted. Now the reason we do the tab lock is the bolts that go in here. There are a selection of bolts you can use. Quite often on these diffs, when they come in to us, we see they've got the standard Land Rover bolt, which has been used since probably about 1950. Not even a grade 8. It's a very weak bolt, and as a result it has a tendency to either break or stretch and come undone. And as you can see in a section of this video, when it comes undone it can cause huge amounts of damage. Some people rebuild them with the standard bolts, which is the 12.9 grade FTC 5150, which has serrations on it. This doesn't really work very well either on this diff, because this is a very soft material. This is a very hard bolt, and those serrations are designed to dig in to hard steel and lock into place. This is quite soft steel, so what happens is even when you put that bolt in there, it doesn't really stay tight. It will chatter and chew into it. It's a bit like trying to torque a bolt into a lump of butter. It doesn't really work. The other thing we've seen people do is use Allen bolts. Problem with an Allen bolt is when you turn it upside down, you've got a very small area of contact. So although it might be clamping, it's not clamping over a very big area. If I compare that to the FTC, then what you've got is a very big area clamping, but it doesn't work because it's so hard and this is so soft. And the second problem with these is because it's 12.9 grade, they are also incredibly brittle. So if this is overloaded, it will basically break that bolt off, as you will see in the video, and then you've got broken bits of very hard 12.9 grade metal in a crown wheel. What we use is a combination on this. Being a tab lock, we want a bolt that's exceptionally strong, but also isn't going to be brittle like a 12.9 and shear off. So we use one of these. This is an SAE 8, which equates to about 10.9 grade on the scale. So it's much stronger than the standard Land Rover bolt, which comes in at less than a grade 8, and not as strong, but not as brittle, as the 12.9 flanged head bolt. And that we fit in there. The problem being now is that this bolt could technically stretch, and if so, it could come undone. The tab lock system means that what we do is we put one of our tab locks on top of that, which locks that into place. Once that's locked into place, it's bolted at the rear here, and that bolt now can stretch, but it can't come undone because it's held into place. And we do that on all 10 bolts. And that, in simple terms, is our tab lock system. So let's build this. Here we have our ultimate build of a 110 short nose differential with every option on it that we can offer, and I'm going to run through the differential and summarize each of the upgrades and in the order in which they should be upgraded. So the first upgrade that you should do, in our opinion, is get rid of that silly little hollow pin and replace it with the Domex carrier cap conversion. We use our own ears that we have laser cut. They're made out of CS80. They're as tough as old boots, and they're actually bolted into place. So that is upgrade number 1, and that gets rid of the pin. If I move across to the other side, upgrade number 2 is to change the internal pins from the 2 18mm pins that have got half of it cut away on each of them in the center for our one-piece forged cross shaft. And that is upgrade number 2. From there we move to the peg casing. There's the peg casing all set and adjusted with the phosphor bronze pad on the inside, which presses against here and holds the entire crown wheel and pinion in place and stops it flexing. And upgrade number 4 is the tab lock system, which you can see here, where we put a 10.9 grade bolt in place of the heavy duty one. The 12.9 grade is a bit like trying to torque it into a block of butter. The casting is so soft that you just can't put a high grade bolt in and get it tight and keep it tight. And that's it. That is every upgrade we can do. Domex carrier cap, one piece forged cross shaft, peg casing, and now tab lock system. These will be available as a standard build in any combination you want, but we suggest that the upgrades are done in that order. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you've got any questions about this or any of our products, just give me a ring. Thanks very much for watching. Bye for now.